Hey everybody, today we're going to be doing another ETF review, and today we're going to be looking at the Schwab International Dividend Equity ETF, or SCHY. Any of you who follow my posts know that I talk about SCHD quite a bit, and this is essentially an international version of that. A fund that invests in large cap dividend paying companies, but in this case on a global scale as opposed to a US scale. So first we can go over what exactly the fund says it's going to do. Its biggest thing is that it says it's going to invest in non-U.S. high dividend yielding stocks with a record of paying dividend for at least 10 consecutive years, financial strength, and screened for lower volatility. Now, I haven't gone over the prospectus in total detail, so one thing I would do before investing in this is learning what they mean by financial strength and low volatility. Do they mean companies with good balance sheets? Are they talking about payout ratios? Are they talking about companies that their tickers don't move a certain amount? I'd want to go over that to make sure I know what exactly their strategy is before I go into it. After that, we can take a peek at our expense ratio, and as we see here, it is 0.14%. It's quite a bit higher than SCHD, which currently sits at 0.06%, but still on the extremely low end. It's not one of these super cheap ETFs where, like SCHD, where you're below 0.1%, but it's still on the lower side, nowhere near 1/4 or 0.5%, so it's nothing to be too concerned about in terms of the expense ratio. Going into the actual fund, we can go down to what it is made up of. And if we look in the portfolio, we can see that there are quite a few companies that the average investor will know. They have GlaxoSmithKline, Sanofi, Unilever, British American Tobacco, companies that most investors have heard of, as well as a bunch of others. I have looked at the entire portfolio, and they currently have 109 holdings, as well as a few extra cash holdings in different currencies. One thing that is a little interesting about this is when we look at the allocations, they do not have these sector or country allocations yet. I'm not sure why this is. It's a little concerning that they don't have that. I would like to see that really within the first 30 days of the fund being out, and this fund has existed for about 2 months currently, so it is rather new, but I would still like to see these sector and country breakdowns. Going into the distribution, we've had our first distribution that is actually due out on the 28th, which is next week, and we can see that it is currently at 5 cents. Now, because this fund is so new, it is not even 3 months old, this first distribution is going to be a bit misleading. If we actually multiply this by 4 distributions a year and get 20 cents, our actual yield is below a percentage. However, because this fund is so new, it hasn't even gotten all of the dividends from all of its holdings, so I would expect this to increase during the next payout period by at least a little bit, probably a lot. Not saying it's going to, but it is very likely to do so. So, what is this fund's purpose? Who is it for? Is it for you? This fund it's a very niche kind of investment. Most people who are looking for dividend stocks are going to look at the U.S. because U.S. companies tend to have very large yields. There are some international stocks that are going to pay very well, but not particularly many. So this fund really holds a place for if you're looking to get into global equities without wanting to go into very risky investments. You're not looking for emerging markets. You're not looking for a lot of Chinese companies or something like that. You're not looking for companies that are very new, but you're still looking to get some kind of income. That's the niche for this fund, if that's what you're looking for. Personally, I would say that SCHD, because it has a longer track record and being a good track record, is probably a better choice. We only have 2 months of data for SCHY so far, and as we can see from its returns, we only have a total of a 1 month return, which is about 4.5%. If we look at the actual index and go back over time, we can see it doesn't do poorly. Our 1 year is sitting at about 43%, and our 3 and 5 year averaging out to about 13%. If we compare that to SCHD, we can see that we're not too far off, 44%, very similar for the 1 year, SCHD doing a little bit better at 51% and doing a little bit better overall. But again, that's only US companies. If you're looking for exposure to global equities, this is going to be what you're more looking for. If you're an income investor, this really isn't going to do it for you. This is going to be more of a dividend appreciation investment, looking for those companies that have been paying dividends over a long period to continue doing so. I would probably, if this were me, hold off on something like this fund until I have some more data. As you can see from our back test here, we have 3 funds. We have SCHY, we have SDIV, which is essentially the Global X version of this fund, and as well as just a simple Vanguard S&P 500 ETF. And since we only have a month of data, we have very little to look at, though SCHY has performed the best of these 3 funds over that very limited amount of time. But again, it is a very limited amount of time. So again, I would probably hold off on investing in this until I've seen a little bit more data, seeing how the investments in this fund do compared to the global market and compared to the US market, such as the S&P 500 and similar funds. Until then, yeah, I would just hold off. I would keep my eye on it. It's definitely something to look at if you're looking for exposure to international dividends. But until then, just keep an eye on it, see what happens, do your research when it's had a little bit more data. I hope this helps, and I will see you next time.